Are we going?
Tell us when it's live, Sandy.
I bet we're live. It's a delay.
Yep, I think you're good.
My friends, we made it. Someday, when my seventh book comes out, I will explain to you how challenging it was to go live on this day. We have been on in conversations with our expert Gregory in St. Louis, with our friends in California, with our friends in India, the Philippines, and just about everywhere else around the world to bring Webcast 11 into your living room, into your boardroom, into your bedroom, into your life, wherever you're tuning in today around the United States, around North America, and around the world. We've come up with a solution that was not exactly what we expected when either I or Abby or Sandy or Todd or Gregory woke up this morning. But I'm delighted to be live with you. I wish the webcast was going to be on stress, because that would be a worthwhile one to be talking about right now. But instead, we get to talk about one that we've been preparing for the previous month. And I hope you can read this behind me. It's emotional intelligence, which you knew was coming. And the theme of it specifically is judging life, all of life, the good and the bad, through the right lens. So, my friends, keep tuning in right now, wherever you are. I'm going to give you a little bit of the backdrop of this story, judging life through the right lens. If, by the way, before I go to that picture of Kenny Chesney, if you've not yet commented, I invite you right now to go to that comment section and answer the question that you see on the screen in front of you. Think of the last time that you felt judged. How did it make you feel? So as I progress through a little bit of our opening remarks, I invite you right now to think of the last time that you felt maybe specifically wrongly judged. And how did it make you feel? Okay, so this previous weekend, I had the opportunity of speaking at Ultimate Software on Thursday, which was a blast. And by the way, I know I have a whole lot of new friends tuning in from our Las Vegas event, from Wisconsin the day before that, and from the previous month of experiences traveling around. So welcome to all of our new friends today. Well, hanging out in Las Vegas with those folks was a blast, but then having the opportunity of my wife flying out. Ultimate Software, their CEO and president, Scott Scher, did me an incredible favor by allowing me access to meet Kenny Chesney, to bring my wife in to see him as well. Our children got to go. We had a wonderful Thursday evening. Then we took this thing out to the desert the following day, which was another total blast. We had a wonderful time out there. Show the following night. Eventually back in the bus yesterday morning. Back in the plane in time to make it back to St. Louis for our event. That was my wife's view on the right-hand side of the plane. This was mine on the left. I got to look out the window and then see my little buddy Grace next to me. Well, while hanging out with Grace in this plane, it made me think of a different experience. Not on my way back from Las Vegas through Phoenix with my four favorite little ones and my wife, but on a business trip from Baltimore to Denver and eventually all the way out to the West Coast. I was sitting on Southwest Airlines. For those of you tuning in from Southwest, you know it's my favorite airline. I love Southwest. I'm in an aisle seat. The plane is getting full. It's getting fuller, and then it's becoming extraordinarily full. They say that every seat is going to be taken but one. Okay, so there's your hope. Every seat's going to be taken but one. Maybe that one seat will be next to me, is my thought. And the reason I like that middle seat is it's a place for me to set my sport coat. It's a place for me sometimes to set my jacket, my briefcase, maybe a coffee. Also, as a rider, I like to kind of stretch out a little bit, and this is how I type. That's how I peck at the keyboard. And so that access to the middle seat with no one there actually does give me the freedom to write, which is really important for me. So I was hoping that I would have the freedom of that middle seat. We've all been there before, hoping that middle seat stays open. The last lady to walk on the plane, the last lady, they shut the door, and I know this is the one. She comes toward me, looks down at me. I look up at her, trying to look kind, but not overly kind. And I was so grateful for the moment when she walked past me. Like, yes, I'm going to have the middle seat, baby. It's mine. I'm going to be able to create and write and stretch out and rest a little bit if I want. A moment later, this lady that I was so grateful who had passed by me came back and she said, "Is that seat taken?" And I lied and said, "I've been saving it for you, ma'am." She sat down, and this woman who I'd been hoping was not going to be seated next to me now was. One of the reasons I hoped she was not going to be seated next to me is because I had been judging her. When she walked on the plane, I saw a woman who was dirty, a woman who was disheveled, a woman who was not well put together by any stretch of the imagination, a woman who looked like she did not belong. Okay? In my mind, through my judging lens, I saw a woman who certainly did not belong on this plane, at least next to me, not in that middle seat, not my middle seat. But then I started to talk to her. And rather than seeing her through that first glance of judgment, I started to see her heart, her story for who she really was. She explained to me that she was coming from Nepal. This was a missionary who had been overseas serving Nepal, this incredible country, this beautiful place. Kathmandu was the city she'd been in. You'd probably heard of Nepal before from, of course, the Himalayas, from Mount Everest. It's beautiful not only for its mountain range, though, but for its people, for its spiritual background, for its beauty. But unfortunately, they had endured a terrific, terrible, tragic earthquake. And this woman, along with her organization, had traveled from the U.S. bringing resources and aid and support and love and care to those who had nothing. She'd been there for the last 9 months serving until she received an email that her mother had passed tragically herself. So this woman leaves Nepal. Let me back up this slide deck a little bit. This little country between China and between India, hops on a plane, takes her 26 hours eventually to get to Baltimore, and then eventually she's trying to make it out to Denver. My friends, this entire time I'd been seeing a woman not for who she really was, but for who I thought she was. Instead, she becomes this lady who's a servant, who is a leader, who's inspirational, who is encouraging and showing the rest of us what real love, real leadership, real generosity looks like in action, and a woman now who is returning to grieve the loss, tragically, of her mother. I told this story to a group of guys that I'm in fellowship with on Saturdays, told them how frequently I get it wrong, how frequently I'm wrong in the way that I judge others. And afterwards, as we're partying to go back to our own cars, our own houses, our own lives, one of these men that I really respect walked over to me. He gave me a big hug, and he actually had tears in his eyes. And I said, "Steve, what's up, man?" And Steve responded, "John, what really hit me as you were telling that story is the woman probably walked past you because she was judging you. She probably saw the scars on the left side of your face. She probably saw your hands. She probably saw you sweating as you were racing from one flight to another. And she was probably thinking, gosh, I hope there's another seat that I can grab so I don't end up next to that guy." And it really put into context for me not only how much I judge others, but the truth when we are honest about it, that we are all so frequently judging those around us in our own life. So, my friends, what I want to do right now is to pause from this opening story and hear from you as you are texting and chatting in on some of the areas in life where you may find yourself being judged and maybe how it made you feel. So I'm going to pull this up. All right, you ready? This is what I'm hearing from you. Jenny. First of all, thanks for being here, Jenny. Last time I was judged, I felt embarrassed. But since I've been doing lots of work on myself, I'm okay with it now. I'm okay with what I'm doing. That's perfect, Jenny. I think the more we understand who we are, whose we are, the less we're worried about how other people feel about us. That is deep empowerment. I think children have this naturally, and I think if we are lucky enough and fortunate enough to live to a long, healthy age, we experience it again in time as we age forward. We're not so worried about what other people think about us, but many of us are. So, Jenny, thanks for showing us another way to go after it. Jill, less than, just not good enough. Perfect. John S., judging is something we all do every day. Yes, we do. Thank you for your honesty, John. The key is getting rid of bad judgment. Perfect. Perfect. Stu, it's hardest when my kids judge my wife and I, especially my teenage daughter. I feel like she is always judging. She can trust us. she'll understand that we have her best interest in mind. That's perfect, Stu. And then finally, we'll leave it here with Stu's comments. I'm going through a separation and I constantly feel confused, frustrated, angry, and judged. Judged by others, I'm sure, and certainly probably Stu, judged by myself, judged by ourselves. Perfect. So where does all this judgment come from? Okay? I want to give you ladies, give you gentlemen, give you friends 3 expectations to take away from our conversation today. We have about 48 minutes left on the landing before we take off and launch into our Mondays, into our marches, into our lives beyond today together. So here are 3 things you ought to be expecting from me as we chat about emotional intelligence, judging through the right lens. For those of you new, if you're really new, you're going to be receiving in the mail from us a red journal. Maybe it's black, depending on when you tune in, but you're going to be receiving a journal from us. If you don't yet have your journal in front of you, grab a piece of scrap paper, grab a napkin, grab an old box that might be hanging out on the floor next to you, and start taking notes. These are 3 takeaways that are worth writing down and worth expecting from me and for you. Number 1, today, together, we are going to define the word judge. Okay, we're going to define what it means and some of the reasons why we judge in the first place. Secondly, we're going to identify the most common ways we misjudge. Okay, because judging by itself isn't necessarily bad. Judging is part of how we decide, should I touch the red stovetop or not? No, we should not. So it's not necessarily bad to judge, but we want to make sure we're not misjudging those around us or ourselves. And then thirdly, identify 4 ways to judge through the right lens and commit to remaining open to having that right lens going forward. So these are our 3 expectations. Write them down, expect them from me, and demand them for yourselves, starting with number 1. We're going to define the word judge and the reason why in the first place, why we do judge. So are you ready? You ready for this? My friends, the new edition, we got new laptops around me. We got new computer screens to my right. I got a new laptop over here. We're using a new software to get this to you today, and it's going to work. Okay, we're not going to judge this process. We're just going to be wide open to the roller coaster ride of life. Let's talk about beards for a moment. Beards are popular today, okay? It's growing. It's been happening now for, 5 years or so, and it just keeps growing. Hollywood loves it. GQ loves it. But they're not the first ones to grow out their beards. Man, they are lagging behind quite a bit. Since the dawn of humankind, guys have been growing out that facial hair. We have been showing off our machismo, our beards. Why start there, John? Because this is where judging began. It's important we get this. As civilization began to dawn, it was of critical importance that we remained safe. Safe around weather, safe around other tribes, other cults, other people, other things that might harm us, hurt us. We could look at saber-toothed animals like this one, and we could quickly summarize. Okay, this was the complexity of thought we had in the early days. Sharp teeth. Long claws. 4 legs, probably fast. Looks mean. And hungry. I better run. Okay, so these were thoughts that we had when we saw that saber-toothed tiger creeping around the wildlife around us in the early days. What did that lead to as we developed our conscious, our minds, our brains? It's called the limbic system. Some of us might refer to it as the lizard brain, but this is like the core. This is the baby. This is who we were in the early stages of development, cognizantly wise, cognizant. Here we are, baby. The limbic system up there pictured for you. It's the beginning of our ability to judge those around us. It's the beginning of this judgment. But what else has it led to? Not only us judging things around us for better and for worse, but it's harming us from being able to see with the right lens what's really taking place inside of us, around us, and in front of us every day of our lives. So I invite you right now to grab your journals and see what that lizard brain is causing us to do today. Because the saber-toothed tiger has been extinct, unfortunately, for thousands of years. But that judgment mindset remains with us. So let's define the word judgment. These first two, we don't need to write these ones down. Yes, it's a public official authorized to decide questions brought before a court. Okay. It's one appointed to decide a contest or a competition, like an umpire. Okay. But these next two ones are worth writing down. These are from Merriam-Webster, online dictionary. Definition number 3, grab your journals for it. Judge, one who gives an authoritative opinion. One who gives an authoritative opinion. But as Stu said, we all judge. I think John S. also said, man, we all judge. When we judge, are we actually giving an authoritative opinion or just our quick first glance opinion of a circumstance, of a person, of someone else, of ourselves? And the next definition I'd like you to write down from our friends at Webster. It's a critic. Just a critic. A judge is just a critic. Turn into any social media handle. Turn into anybody who's creating some content online, any magazine, any podcast, any area where people are putting forward content. And you will find folks commenting below, many of them criticizing what they see above. Just critics. It's judging. It's judging. So here's a question I ask you to think about before I'm going to ask you to give me an answer to a question online. So here's the question. Think about it for a moment. How often is our authoritative opinion as a critic of someone else, something else, or a group of others inaccurate? Okay? How frequently is our authoritative opinion as a critic of someone else, something else, or a group of others inaccurate? Frequently, we don't know it at first, but hindsight is 2020. It's in looking back that we realize how inaccurate it was. We are. So my friends, the question I invite you right now to chat your answer to me. That means if you are tuning in right now, I ask you right now to participate, to engage, to play along, to be inspired leaders by showing up. So how can judging someone else, something else, or a group of others be destructive? How can it be harmful to you, to them, to your team, to your organization, to your past, to your present, to your future, to your health, to your vibrancy, to the potential for us to build a bridge to someone else, to something else, to a whole new group of people, new ideas, a new mindset shift? How can judging someone else, something else, or a group of others be destructive? So go ahead and type in. There's a little bit more of a lag today than normal due to the way we are structured with our software today. So I'm going to tell you a couple brief little stories about others as their criticism, their ability to judge, proved to be their demise. Here's a story I think we're all familiar with. It's a story of David. He's a little figure in the front. The little rounded stone, man. He's getting ready to throw that thing toward the beast, toward the giant, toward Goliath. As Goliath took the battlefield that day, he and his colleagues laughed at the little boy in front of him. They weren't laughing as the giant took a stone to the forehead and fell dead to the battlefield. It was a judgment that the giant made that was in error. And it's a pretty big example of what can happen when we misjudge someone around us in life. But it doesn't just stop there. It's true in our businesses. I've realized many of us are tuning in as a team. You're watching this in a boardroom or you're watching it with your entire sales team. And hey, we're glad you're here because we know judgment can negatively impact how we show up professionally. What better case is there than our friends at Blockbuster who judged this little David around them? Somebody, some organization that no one would ever hear from. In all likelihood, this idea of streaming online, it's impossible. It's impossible. So they ignored them. They laughed at them. And when it began in early 04, turn of the 99 into the 2000s, Blockbuster was the king, the Goliath, the beast, They owned the marketplace. They thought streaming was a joke, and so they ignored it. They gave it away to the little Davids of the world, like a little company called Netflix. Not a big deal. Oh, four. It's about a $500 million business compared to the giant in the room. $6 billion. Play that thing forward just a few years to about '08, and you still got Blockbuster dominating. But then things shifted. David got the smooth rock into lets it rip, and here we go. This is what it leads toward bankruptcy within 2 years for Blockbuster, and the growth of Netflix has absolutely taken off. $7 billion plus now. This massive David, who is now this beast. But he's not alone. It's not the only organization. I find myself judging those around me, whether it's a business, another team, another speaker, another writer, another group of people. I find myself judging all the time to my detriment. On another flight, I find myself on airplanes quite a bit. There was a gentleman named Jerry Price who has become a dear friend. But when I first sat next to him, I saw this fella who was big, he was bald-headed, he had a light beard, he had a deep voice. I looked over to him, seated next to him. First words out of my mouth were, "How you doing, man?" And his words back to me, "I'd be doing better if you stopped talking with me." So that was the end of the conversation right there with Brother Jerry Price. I'm never going to talk to this beast, this giant ever again. And so I began working. I started working, typing, working through email, everything else on my little laptop. And then the giant man, about halfway through this flight from Atlanta to Appleton, Wisconsin, looked over at me and he said, "Dude, I got to ask, what happened to your fingers?" So I told him what happened to my fingers. I told him that at the age of 9, I was burned in a house fire, expected to die, and today I get to travel around the world teaching others how to truly live. And so we started talking about the fire. I started talking about my wife and my kids. Then he started talking about his wife, his kids, his work, his passion for safety, his passion for elevating those around him in his life. At the end of the flight, I shook his hand, then gave him a hug. He took my card. I grabbed his, went to my hotel room that night in Appleton, Wisconsin, and before I even checked in, there was an email waiting from Jerry Price to his new friend John O'Leary, thanking me for the time and saying, "I look forward to bringing you sometime into my organization." Jerry Price followed through on that. He brought me in 3 times into his organization. It's called Bolt Construction. But maybe the most beautiful story about Jerry Price was when I got a phone call from him saying, "Hey," early morning, "Hey, brother, just found out that there have been a string of suicides at a local high school. 3 suicides in the last semester and a half in this one high school." He says, "I don't care what it costs. I don't care if I have to collect bottle caps for the rest of my life. I'm putting you on a plane. I'm bringing you to the school, and I'm having you talk to these kids about life, about life." I believe it was less than 3 weeks later, a kid named John O'Leary was on a flight to Appleton, Wisconsin, took a short trip down south to a little high school where there had been a string of suicides. I got to hang out with these kids for an entire day, talking about tragedy, talking about death, talking about decisions, talking about doing life together, talking about working through adversity, talking about leaning into others, talking about abundant life, not giving up, fighting forward, leaning into those around us, not trying to do it by ourselves. It was an incredible day, and during the entire time that I spent with these young men and these young women, in the back of the theater, in the back of the amphitheater, stood a bald-headed, slightly bearded, beast bear of a man named Jerry Price. Frequently the bear was crying, his heart was open, his eyes shined brightly as he exhibited this light, this love that I would have never seen through my first glance at him. It would have led, if I stayed in my judgment, to 3 opportunities with Bolt never happening, to this opportunity of a lifetime for me hanging out with these kids never happening, and a relationship that has blossomed going forward never happening. So my friends, I want to share with you some of the examples that you shared on what happens how judging someone else, something else, or a group of others can be destructive. Here's what I'm hearing from you. Okay? Alan, I'm thrilled you're tuning in today. Sometimes the company we can drag us down through the path of misjudging, no doubt. Sometimes the folks we hang with can judge, pull us down, Ellen. That's perfectly said. SN, negative, inaccurate judgments can block our own experiences. It's like having cataracts, isn't it, SN? We have cataracts from actually seeing what's taking place around us in life. I'll share two more. Jenny, being judgmental can keep us from learning new perspectives. Absolutely. It keeps us with our arms crossed, heart cold, eyes shut, looking downward, not toward opportunity, but toward negativity. And then finally, Madeline, judgment can be destructive. It can destruct a relationship before it even begins to happen. And I think, Madeline, when I talk about Jerry Price, yes, it led to some cool work opportunities. Yes, it led to a school in Wisconsin. But maybe more than all of that, it led to a friendship. I love that man. I love his wife. I've met their children several times. It's a real friendship now, because finally near the end of that flight, the judgment made its way out the window. The misjudgment was pushed away, and the opportunity of new life was pushed in front of us. So, my friends, I wanted to define with you with the word judgment, the reason why we do judge. Secondly, to identify the most common ways we misjudge and the fallacy of each one. These are probably worth writing down, and if you don't believe me, you can turn on any daytime television and you'll find one of these characters up there. We love judging people on daytime television, but it's not just on daytime TV where we judge, is it? I think we all judge when we are honest about it from time to time. So here are the 4 common ways that we misjudge. You don't need to be named Judge Judy to occasionally get it wrong. Here we go. Number 1, these are worth writing down, I think. We judge ourselves based on our environment, so that the things around us, but we judge others based on their character. It's called fundamental attribution error bias. We judge ourselves based on our experience, our life, man. It's just how we go about it. But we judge others based on their character. When you say the words, yeah, but, that's when we know that we have fallen for this one. Yeah, but, yeah, it's different for me. Yeah, but. You see my little men up there in this picture. Fire, the Valley of Fire. This is about an hour and 20 minutes outside of Las Vegas. A worthwhile drive. Don't do it in the summertime because it gets hot out there. But these are my little boys, Jack, Patrick, and Henry. Well, 2 weeks ago, we, the boys, took Grandpa, that's my dad, out to lunch. My grandpa has Parkinson's disease. Many of you know that. He's wheelchair bound. He struggles a bit physically in life, but we are lucky to have him in our life. Well, after lunch, on our way home with Grandpa, one of them, no names, I know they look like perfect angels right now, one of them pinched the brother because he was sitting too close. So then the other one pinched the other one back, which turned into a shove, and then a harder shove, which leads to Dad saying, hey guys, knock it off, which they ignored, because then it turned into a harder shove, a gentle punch, a less gentle punch, a hard punch. Now I'm screaming at the top of my lungs, boys, cut it off. Then I see one of these kids lean back and punch their brother right in the head. I'm shocked. I looked at my dad. My dad is stunned too. He says to me, they're your kids. They're not listening to me at all. We are on a 6-lane road with a turn lane. I'm on the left-hand side. I pull the car into the turn lane. Stop it. I know, don't judge me right now. Park it. Open up my door. Open up their door. Yell at these kids, what are you guys doing? Stop fighting with your brothers. Why won't you listen to me? Why won't you love each other? Cars are zooming by. Cars are honking. And I'm thinking to myself, they don't know what this is like. They have no idea what I'm going through right now, just trying to parent. My friends, we judge ourselves based on our environment. My three crazy kids in the back seat that will not listen. They zoom, zoom, zoom as they drive by with their perfectly seated children or no children or whatever it is, judge someone else based on their character. And it's not only true for me. I know we all do it. We all do it. Yeah, but. Yeah, but. We got to be careful with the yeah buts of life as the sirens go by behind us in life. Yeah, but. Yeah, but. Second way we judge those around us. We judge others using prior interactions and stereotypes rather than the present day realities and possibilities. It's the always bias. Okay? And you know you're living into the always bias when you say the words, those people, right? Those people over there. And then we make a comment about those people, whatever that thing may be, because we've been around those types of people before. We know how they show up. We had that one interaction that one time in Vegas with those people. Those people. My friend, I'm going to play for you a video of this man who, maybe more than anyone else, sums up those people. But I think in the way Simon sums up those people is a way from time to time we all judge those people. I'm going to play one video of Simon. As you watch Simon judging this next person, place yourself in Simon's shoes, okay? Because when this next person walks on the stage, it's probably not who you think it is. I know we've all seen a great Susan Boyle video. It's not that one, although it's one of my favorites. This one's name is Paul Potts, okay? So I want to play for you this great video of a gentleman named Paul Potts. And as we play Paul Potts, ignore the camera. Here we go. This is Paul Potts. Oh no. I'm going to have to hold it up for you guys. You know what? Forget Paul Potts. Here's your homework assignment. We're going to send this back to you. Let me turn this off for one moment. Your homework assignment, and it's not optional. You will be turning this into your teacher next week. Here we go. Your homework assignment is to Google Paul Potts opera Simon. And I'll send this back to you in an email later on today with this video as well. Paul Potts opera Simon. Watch how Paul Potts walks on the stage. This man who is slightly overweight, this man who has teeth that are a little crooked, this man who has a little bit of a bent over posture, this man who seems to lack a little bit of confidence, this man who walks off into Britain's Got Talent. And then Simon looks up and says, "Why are you here?" And Paul responds, "I'm here to sing opera." When he says this, not only watch the judges' faces as they kind of laugh, watch the audience. A couple thousand people chuckle when Paul Potts says, "I am here to sing opera." Well, my friends, 90 seconds later, when he belts out the final note, they're not laughing anymore. Literally, they are on their feet, wiping their tears in awe of an opera singer in front of them. Every day, we occasionally will say to ourselves, because we know, we've seen those people before, we've seen their performances, they're not that good, they can't do that, they don't have the right potential, the right skill sets, the right luck, those people. And it's a mistake. It's a mistake we make when we look through the wrong lens at the people around us in life. So my invitation today, as we begin to change the way we view from the misjudgment to the proper lens, is to remove from our vocabulary the words, those people, those people. Open ourselves up to those people around us. It's not them versus us. Ultimately, it's we. And the more purely we can see them for the first time, the better. So that's number 2, okay? 2 ways we misjudge. The third way, by the way, I'm turning this off for a moment. Google Paul Potts. Okay, when the work meeting gets a little bit slow today and you're like, man, I can't take one more minute of this. So I got to use the restroom. I'll be back in 3 to 4 minutes. Perfect. Go outside, make a left-hand turn, pull up your little cell phone. Paul Potts, Judge, Simon. and be in awe as this man teaches the rest of us not only how to sing, but how to see. How to see. Awesome. Number 3. We judge with our understanding, our value system, our moral compass of what is right. But we judge others with their revelation, their display, their actions, where they worship, how they work, how they craft emails, how they sing, with what's wrong. And I call this one the Miss Daisy bias. Okay, my mom and dad were and are awesome. Well, one of the things they taught us as kids is to love movies. So we love all kinds of movies, but one of the movies that we had exposure to as kids was Driving Miss Daisy. I think it won every award when it came out that year. But you know you are driving Miss Daisy, and you know you are Miss Daisy when you find yourself saying the words, I want it. I want it. I want it. So how do you know you're Morgan Freeman? How do you know that you're Miss Daisy? How do you know you're in the back of that car, arms crossed like this, judging someone else's experience who was in front of you? How do you know your hands are 10 and 2, judging the lady who you really don't know yet because you've only known her a day or two or a few decades until you really get to know her? How do you know you're judging people through the wrong lens? Because you find yourself saying, I would not. And you know you're saying I would not when you say things like this. I'm going to give you a few descriptors here. I want you to place yourself into one of these two characters' lives. Number 1, that guy is an idiot. How could you drive that? I find myself saying this one all the time. Usually I'm in the middle lane, and there's someone driving by on the left-hand side way faster than me. That guy's an idiot. He drives way too fast. Then there's someone in the slow lane. That guy's an idiot. He drives way too slow. On occasion, though, I'm on my way to a beautiful meeting. I'm in no rush. I'm in the slow lane. A person in the middle lane drives by me. Gosh, that lady's crazy. Then there's someone in the left lane past her. That guy's even more crazy. But occasionally I'm late for a flight. I'm late for a meeting. And I may even find myself in that left lane, judging everybody else in the 2 lanes to my right. I want it. I want it. This is one of the ways we like to judge as others drive around us in life. In either lane they may find themselves. Somehow, we are always the ones going the right speed. Question whether you are actually going the right speed. Seriously, question that every day. Not only behind the wheel. Are you really going the right speed? Is your way the only way for? Is that really the only way? Just because you said in the past, I want it, are you closing yourself out to new opportunities, new ways of doing things, new relationships, new people, new faith understandings of what is right, of what is good, of what is possible? I want it. Stop saying those words. Second thing that we may find ourselves when we are saying I would not is, how could she wear that outfit? It's too red, short, tight, long. Whatever it is, I want it. Third thing we might find ourselves saying, they hired who? They must have been desperate because I want it. A few more. Why would he go back to his ex? She's no good because I wouldn't have done it. How could they allow their kids to... you never said those words? You liars. Finally, and we could go on and on and on and on and on and on and on, but the final one I typed in today. Why would you put that in your body? Whatever that is. Okay, funny, this is a true story from yesterday. The lady to my front left was reading a book called Diet for the Vegan. Okay? Diet for the Vegan. The guy yesterday on the flight to my front left was reading a book directly behind this woman called Paleo. Okay? On the same plane, 2 rows apart, 2 different lifestyles. To be honest, I'm not sure which one's the right. I got a buddy right down the hall. Todd, I'm looking at you right now. He's a vegetarian. He doesn't eat meat. I want it, but he doesn't say those words. We have a team meeting a couple times a week where we eat together. He doesn't judge the rest of us whether we choose or choose not to eat meat. My friends, try not to cross your arms, shut your eyes, judge those around us with the words Miss Daisy or Morgan Freeman. I want it. And the final ways I think that we say I would not, that we judge those around us, is we judge their portrayed life versus our real one. And real is in lowercase letters because I'm not even sure we're judging our real life frequently. But we judge other people's portrayed life versus our real one. We call it social comparison bias. Frequently, when you find yourself saying these words, poor me, it's so important to recognize in life that almost everything is perspective. The man who wakes up mad with his arthritis all of a sudden changes his tune when he sees a guy with no fingers walking through an airport. But then this guy, as he says, poor me, changes his tune when he sees a guy with no arms. I have a buddy named John Foppy. But then even John Foppy changes his tune when he sees a guy being pushed through an airport named Nick V. No arms and no legs. And Nick V changes his tune when he sees a guy or gal born in a different part of the world with no opportunities at tomorrow, with no chance at really a better life than the one they have today. Poor me dies a death when we stop comparing ourselves to those around us. Okay? Social media frequently is unhelpful for this one. Because when we glance into the lens of our 3-inch by 2-inch screen, we see the best of someone else's life. Oh, we see this swimsuit. By the way, this picture probably has been photoshopped before they went live with it. Don't kid yourself. Squeezed in just a little bit. We put on that lens to kind of color up the legs just a little bit. They don't talk about it, what it was like to go through 16 hours of a station wagon trip to get there, what it's like to maybe auction off their future retirement so that they can buy this vacation today, the screaming taking place on the beach, the challenges they face in getting there. All we see is this, with the description, something like 78 breeze, hashtag blessed. Woo! Blessed. Well, we turn that off and we look in the mirror and we see an image that is not feeling very blessed sometimes. We see an image that is grayer or wrinklier or poorer or lonelier or more beat down or feeling unfulfilled or shame riddled than the one we saw the day before or the one we saw the day before that. Why is this? Why do we have this poor me mentality? It's an awesome question. This quote speaks to it. And by the way, the entire slide deck that you see on this computer screen behind me will be sent back to you today. We don't normally do this, but because we realize it's a little bit of an awkward dance today with the image back here instead of full screen in front of you, we want to make sure you have all the slides. So they're coming your way, but grab your journal, write down this one. It's from our buddy Steven. Here we go. The reason why we struggle with poor me, with insecurity, is because we compare our behind the scenes life with everyone else's highlight reel. We compare the challenges of trying to save, of trying to earn, of trying to become, of trying to figure out who we are. How do you stay in a relationship? What do you do when it falls apart? How do I respond when 3 kids are having a fist fight behind me in a car? We compare our life, and sometimes the least of our life, with the highlight reel of those around us in life. It's the poor me mentality. It's not helpful and it's not honest. And so, my friends, how do we move through this? If you judge people, if you judge yourself through the wrong lens, you have no time to love people, and you have no time to love yourself. If you judge people, if you're so busy judging them or yourself, we will have no time, no opportunity, no lens with which we can properly see them, know them, love them, connect with them, and do life even better together with them. So let's talk about getting rid of that misjudgment. Awesome. Number 3, I told you 3 main takeaways. We spent a lot of time on 2, but now we're going to land this plane with 4 ways that we can see life through the proper lens. Okay? Here we go. These are worthy of being written down. So grab your journals if you have them. If you don't, cool. Grab that cocktail napkin, grab that cardboard box, open up your laptop, start taking notes. Here we go. 4 ways to begin judging through the right lens. Number 1, Be the hall monitor. Okay. Be the hall monitor. If you went to a school, in other words, if you were not homeschooled, it's likely there were leaders in your school that could have been classmates, they could have been part of Stuco, they could have been teachers, they could have been security guards where you went. But there were people in the hallways between classes, between lunch, between recess, between extracurricular. Hall monitors. We had them in school to keep order, to make sure if something went down that should not have gone down, there was someone to say, hey, knock it off. We don't do that around here. Do you have that person in your own life? A hall monitor. Do you have the ability not only to lean into a mentor, a coach, a friend, a spouse, an advisor at work, a teacher, a rabbi, a pastor, a friend, a walking buddy, whomever? But do you have the ability to shut your eyes and for a moment, just for a moment, be the hall monitor of your judgment when you say something about those people? Poor me. I would not. Do you have the ability for a moment to say, whoa, 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 there it is again. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. We need to have a hall monitor right about here in our own lives. So how do you do that? Perfect. I'm glad you asked. You start seeing them again. Those people, our children, our parents, those other people's children, that lady and her decisions, that group and where they worship, that business and the model they move into, those people, we see them again, but this time we see them for the first time. We come at them not with our arms crossed through the lens of judgment. Let he who is without sin throw the first stone. It's important that we realize we've all made mistakes. We're all coming at this situation today, whatever the situation is, through our own perspective. It may not be wrong, but it also may not be right. So we need the hall monitor to slow us down, to pump the brakes. And then, now that they're pumped, our eyes are open, we are returning to how we were as children, or how we grow as we do life even better, as wise, seasoned veterans into it. I'm talking about the wisdom that comes through the ages of experience in life and setting down the stones of judgment. We see them again for the first time. Imagine how this might impact how we see our children, our spouse, the things she does, the thing they do, where they go, how they operate. Okay, see them again for the first time. Please do write these down. I think it's imperative. This is kind of like my mind marching orders, because I'm one of the most judgmental guys I know. I'm working on it. I'm trying to get better today than I was yesterday, but I'm judgmental. I see it. It's one of the sins that I carry with me in life, but I'm aware of it now. I'm being a hall monitor. I'm leaning into those around me. I'm trying to catch myself. I'm trying to see them again now for the first time. I'm trying to have compassion for them and for myself. My wife and I were big brothers and big sisters. Seeing how a child from a different part of the world was raised, a different part of our community was raised, a child who never got to know his father, a child who grew up in a neighborhood that was completely different than the one that I grew up in, a child who sees school different than I saw it, a child who had different expectations on him than the one I had on me, a child who saw police through a different lens than I saw the police, a child who saw work opportunities and life opportunities through a completely different lens, allowed my wife, beautiful Beth, and me to begin to see life through the lens that others in this community saw life through. Had a little bit of compassion for them, began to build a bridge with them, and then together start to elevate not only their life, like helping someone else out, but our life. Because I think when we see life through a different lens, we can't help but see all of life through that more perfect, more 2020 lens, which allows us to see work and finances and generosity and creativity through a completely different lens. But in order to do so, we got to meet people where they are. You got to love people how they are. And part of that sometimes means looking in the mirror, having a little bit of compassion for her and for him. It's imperative as we dance forward with the right lens, judging through the right lens. And it leads to not just new compassion, number 3, but finally, it frees us to stretch our boundaries. Um, I would not. I would not. I don't do that because this lens of judgment that so many folks have, well, we all have it, in fact. I think Stu, Phil, maybe John, one of those fellows wrote it down earlier. We all judge. Maybe I can start judging through the right lens. That's exactly right, judging through the right lens. So how do we do it? Number 4, stretch your boundaries. If our life is only homogeneous, if everybody looks just like me, in my case, I'll own this one, a white male, married with a couple children, worshiping on Sundays, leaning one way politically, reasonably successful professionally from the middle part of the United States. If that's my only network, it is going to impact how I show up spiritually. It is going to impact how I love those in the community around me in this network, how I step into the East Coast and the West Coast, how I step into service in Latin America, as I travel to Canada, to Europe, to the Middle East, toward the Far East, toward all parts of the world, as we start building a global network of people trying to live inspired. If I'm only hanging out with people who look just like me, if I refuse to stretch my boundaries, it will be impossible to begin moving forward and loving people where they are. So the order of this process is this. We need a hall monitor. That hall monitor sometimes is a coach, sometimes is a rabbi, sometimes it's a pastor, sometimes it's a dear friend who knows you well. But ultimately, you got to own it. You got to be the hall monitor, which then allows us to look around life and to see them again for the first time. Important, which then frees us to open up our heart, open up our mind, open up our eyes, knock off the judgment. And then fourthly, finally, take a deep breath, O'Leary. Stretch. In the book On Fire, I'm not going to reach forward right now because I'm like strapped in here like I'm ready to launch a NASA satellite. Okay, there's technology all around me today. But right over to my bookshelf, there is a book called On Fire. There are 12 editions around it from different languages. And last week on Thursday, we celebrated the 2nd anniversary of On Fire. I know many of you ladies and gentlemen follow me online. You are aware of the competition we are currently running. On the chance that you're not, 2 things right now. In On Fire, I talked about stretching. So if you've never read On Fire, check it out. Chapter 5, I believe, is about stretching boldly in life. Not only our bodies, but our judgments, our mindset, our perspective, our lives, our potential. But the other part about this On Fire birthday celebration 2 years in is that I invite you today or tomorrow, take a picture of you and your copy of On Fire, link back toward me, and hashtag On Fire. We're going to pick one lucky winner this week to spend an hour with me. It could be a video to your organization, like a keynote online. It could be a chat session like we're having right now, but just me and you. It could be a phone call, video coaching call, whatever it looks like. But I want to spend 1 hour celebrating On Fire with one lucky winner. So go online, take a picture, selfie with On Fire, link back to me, and then hashtag On Fire, guys. Our community outside of studios aware of this. They're posting like crazy. I want to make sure that you're aware of it too. So here we go. I promised you today, and by the way, I'm going to be looking for a few questions at the end of this little run through. 3 commitments on living into judgment and our ability to judge through the right lens. Number 1 thing we wanted to get accomplished today, besides making the technology work, which by the way, Abby, Sandy, Gregory, Todd, they're down the hall from me right now. This thing was a train wreck an hour ago, and here we are 56 minutes in, and they rocked it again. So I want to give credit where credit is due. They figured out how to launch this thing. So credits goes to those folks down the hall. Guys, you rock. Number one commitment for all of us today, besides the technology indeed working. Number one, define the word judge and the reasons why we judge. That part of our mind, the lizard mind, man, that is so archaic. We need it, but we don't need to live with it all the time. Second thing that we were going to do is to identify the 4 most common ways we misjudge. We called them out already. And by the way, for those of you tuning in for the first time later on this afternoon, this will be part of the archive session. So you can always watch this later on, and you can watch the 10 previous videos at your convenience. And then thirdly, we were going to identify 4 ways to judge through the right lens. And then you were going to make a commitment, just one, to begin judging through the right lens. My hope is in the last few minutes, 3 to 4 minutes we have, that there might be a couple questions regarding this program, what I've been chatting about, judging, technology, where we are today, how to judge through the proper lens, why we get it wrong so frequently, how not to get burned when we judge the wrong way, or maybe it's about where we're going as a community next. Any questions you have, whatever it might be, in the chat feature, type it in, hit send, and I want to respond to you personally while you type away. Here we go. Some of you might be asking, hey, O'Leary, what's next? Do it, what's next? Okay, I'm glad you asked. Number one, an email today with this video. I'm going to send this back to you today, so you can expect that. It will also include a file, Dropbox, with all of the slides if you want to go through them individually. It will include a survey. You help us shape where this thing goes. We want to know what's working, what's not, what topics you want to chat about, and how to make it even better for round 12, round 13 as we live on. So fill out the survey. And then number 3, as part of that email, I'm going to send you an invitation because it's my hope that you are getting incredible value from these studio sessions and you want to share it with your team. The ladies and gentlemen you work with, you worship with, you hang with, you work out with, you live with. So send this on. Let's continue to spread the message of In Studio together. Okay, we've had more than 1,000 folks enroll into Studio. You're one of them. You're part of a global community, but let's continue that impact going forward. So you'll get a link to that invitation to pass it on. Please do. You'll receive a message within that email saying, hey, if you want the Sunday text here, or you can do it right now. I send out a message every Sunday that reminds you this week about judging. I'll remind you over the next 4 weeks or so, usually through a video, on judging and how to judge more purely, more properly, more rightly this week than we did last. How to have a little bit of compassion for those around us, how to be a hall monitor, how to look in the lens and ultimately compare yourself to the only comparison that matters. Not those around us, not the mistakes you made, but who you were, who you are, and ultimately who you're going to become going forward. So if you want these Sunday texts, they're free. It's just part of the program. Text to this number, 314-825-2478. Text the word studio, and we'll take care of the rest. And then finally, where are we going next? I'm glad you asked. We get to talk about time. And maybe the better way to frame this is timelessness. How we can harness the best of the time that we have while we are here, whether that means professionally, whether it means financially, spiritually, in our relationships, in our marriages, in our partnerships, in our singleness, in our activities, in our hobbies, in what brings us great joy and passion and vitality in life. How do you harness time? I can't wait to unpack that one with you in April. By the way, May, I'm already working on May. I know we're getting way ahead of ourselves right now. But May is going to be focused on doing the impossible. I'm already fired up about May, but before we get to May, we got to talk about April. April's going to be awesome. We're going to talk about harnessing time. So if you have any questions, I know some of you need to log off because we've spent the full hour already. I'm going to answer 2 questions right now, and then we're going to live into judging through the right lens this week, Miss Daisy, going forward. So let's just take this question from Brooke Lewis. I have found the more I grow and stretch, the less I judge. Woo! Being aware is a huge responsibility, but comes with huge rewards. Brooke Lewis, baby, that is a virtual high five from this office to wherever you are tuning in from right now. I'm going to say this all one more time because you just stole my closing. Okay? Here's my closing. This is from John O'Leary. Forget about Brooke Lewis. This is from John O'Leary. I have found community, friends, and studio family, that the more I grow and the more I stretch, the less I judge myself and others. Being aware is a huge responsibility, but it comes with huge, great rewards. That's from John O'Leary. Brooke just stole my clothes before I could get there. So on behalf of Brooke Lewis, Chuck Jansen, Marcus, and everybody else who's tuning in today, on behalf of my incredible marketing media tech team down the hall, Gregory, Todd, Dana, Abby, Sandy, and everybody else that worked like dogs to make this thing happen today, and on behalf of each and every one of you who opts in, who believes, like I, that the best is yet to come, being aware is hard. It comes with great responsibilities. But my goodness, those gifts are so great, so remarkable, so worthy. So this week, my friends, I invite you to cut away the cataracts, to be open of the ability we have to be a hall monitor in our lives, to see people, see things, see them, that group over there, see opportunities, mindsets, again, for the first time, to have a little bit more compassion for them and for us, okay? And then to stretch boldly, wildly, fantastically, daily, believing that the best is yet to come. My friends, I love you. I'm grateful for you. Thank you for being with us. So for this time, until Sunday, the chat feature, and until next month in April, this is John O'Leary, and today is your day. You know it. Live inspired.